The Syroco team is all about mixing the naval, maritime sports and the tech, the big data environments. We have not a crazy project, but a very ambitious speed record project, and we are using it to drive innovation that matters to help decarbonize the maritime transportation world.
That's Alex Caizergues. He's a Frenchman from Marseille with a love of speed. He is the world's champion and once the fastest man on water, having travelled at more than 107 kilometres an hour using a kite and a board. Now, if you've never seen kite surfing, it's this combination of paragliding, surfing and windsurfing all wrapped into one exhilarating ride. It's now become a major competitive sport where competitors battle it out for manoeuvres including high jumps and, of course, speed. And if you're in the shipping industry, you may be familiar with a brace of companies developing similar shaped kite solutions to be used to power shipping using the wind. Now, Alex is still the fastest man on a kiteboard, but he lost the outright speed record to a sailing vessel called Vestas Sail Rocket 2. It's a prow-like torpedo, is the best word for it, that has set a new speed record of 65 knots or 121.1 kilometres per hour using the wind. So, Alex now wants to reclaim his title. But to reclaim the outright sailing speed record, he's ditched the kiteboard and developed something far more radical, which I'll come to in a minute. But in doing so, he and his team have developed a tool which they say can be used in the shipping industry, not to make things go faster, of course, but to assess how they can be designed or retrofitted to go more efficiently with better lines suitable for wind and water. This is the Aronnax Podcast, and I'm your host, Craig Eason, also owner and editor of the Fathom.World website. In this episode of the podcast, we're looking at how a world speed champion is looking to get his title back, and in doing so found a process, a tool, he believes shipping can use as they develop and design, retrofit and build ships that are able to meet the emissions and efficiency goals they're being set. Alex Caizergues grew up in the south of France and grew in love with kite surfing in the strong winds found in the French Mediterranean coast.
It's a place where the Mistral, the very famous Mistral wind is blowing, sometimes crazy, and yeah, I think it's because I grew up there and I learned to kite there. I was really used to strong winds. So I start with some friends trying to go fast because it was funny. We have a place there with very flat water and strong wind. So basically either you can jump, that's what we were doing like hobby, and then we try to go fast. And we had some very interesting times on the GPS watch. Saying like why we shouldn't try to compete. So I start competing, doing competitions against other kite surfers, and I was not too bad. So I tried to go to participate in as many competitions as I could, and then I became faster and faster, and then the idea came into my mind that maybe we could set a new sailing speed record, a new kite surfing speed record, then outright or absolute sailing speed record, and that's what we did first in Namibia and then in France.
He gained the speed record kite surfing along man-made ditches in the flat sands of Namibia and France, but now he wants to go faster, and to do that he has had to think radically different. But such a task isn't going to be easy, so what they've designed is as close to not being a sailing vessel as one could imagine. This is no longer an attempt to gain a kiteboarding speed title, but to become once again the fastest man on water, using natural forces, the wind, and to shatter the current speed record, and he wants to achieve 150 kilometres an hour. So, Syroco have ditched the board and gone for a pod, which looks more like the fuselage of a fighter jet, albeit without wings and a tail. There's still a kite attached with a long wire tethered above it. Below it there's another wire tether going into the water, and at the end of which is an anchoring foil, airplane shaped, to move smoothly through the sea. Its objective is to keep the pod close to, but not on the water surface, and offset the kite's upward pull while amplifying all that forward momentum. To achieve an official sailing speed record, the pod will have very little else in it. No batteries, not many aids at all. However, the prototype that they are currently using does, and it is the development of this that has led to the development of a software tool that Alex and the Syroco team now believe has a wider use than just achieving speed. Here he takes up the story along with Syroco co-founder Yves de Monchaux.
We started really, at the beginning of Syroco, we started with a blank page. We did a brainstorm with a part of the people we have in our team today, and experts from the America's Cup, from the paragliding world, passionate people, enthusiasts, experts in their domain, that could bring their expertise in that open field to innovation, and with just a simple question at the beginning: how to go fast on water, propelled by the wind. You can take whatever you want as a solution: a foil, a kite, a sail, two foils, all of the concept that could be used to go fast on water. And we ended up with a list of like something like 50 different concepts.
50 concepts, absolutely.
Yeah. And we started to evaluate them, trying to find which one will be the most efficient, energy efficient one. So we created a program called the VPP, a Velocity Predictor Program, that will help us evaluate which was the most efficient, according to our operational constraint, or what's the name in English for cahier des charges? Requirements. Be able to go on in open sea, being able to go port tack and starboard tack, be able to jibe with the concept. Remember that I coming from the kite surfing world, where to go fast we need a trench, so 8 meters wide canal. So it was one of the requirements. It was to be able to go in open sea and not being stuck into a canal. And so we had this 50 concept. We created the VPP. We used the VPP to evaluate which one was the most efficient, and then how to design the different parts, the hull, the capsule, the size of the foil, the size of the kite, and the program was resolving the balance, resolving the equilibriums, or I don't know if we can say that, but and we ended up with that concept of a flying capsule hanged between the propulsion of a kite and the propulsion underwater of a foil, inverted foil. For us, it was the most efficient, energy efficient one, and the one who was the biggest potential. And we designed it to reach that speed of 80 knots.
So how does this lead you to engaging with the maritime industry, with the shipping industry? What is that journey then, from looking at a speed record to looking at how you can actually find a solution to go into the maritime sector?
So there are actually two very different answers to that question. The first one is the why, and the second is the how. The why comes from is really engraved into the DNA of Syroco, and this is the project that Alex and us, his partners, are wanting to build. It's to use the pioneering achievement, the speed record, as a way to generate innovation. So speed is not a goal in itself. Alex has had plenty of that. He has been fast since he was little, and so now the question is, beyond the speed record, how do we use the speed record as a way to generate innovation that brings purpose and that is useful for the planet, that's useful for the energy transition. So the how then. The how is actually quite simple. Alex described the design process that we use to shaft through those 50 concepts and to understand which ones were the most efficient. And there was no software that allowed us to do that, so we actually had to build the software. We had to build the algorithm that would process the physics of those designs, process the data, and tell us which ones to throw away, which ones to refine, to go further into simulation, etc. And that's when we thought, and that was really a gradual thought process. I mean, we knew from the start that we wanted to apply that, but we didn't know how at first. So that's part of the innovation. Along the way, we saw a path where we could take those algorithms and to apply them to different types of ships, because our speedcraft is a sailing yacht. It's a pretty atypical one, but basically it's a sailing yacht. And we have been thinking, okay, so what's in common between that speedcraft and any type of boat? Well, they go through water at very different speed, but there is friction, there are forces, there is the impact of wind on the superstructure, on the sail, there's the impact of waves, of swell, and all of that, as you know, because seen on your profile, you've been a sea captain, so you know that a boat goes a lot slower when there is swell and uses a lot more fuel than when the sea is calm. So we were thinking, well, if we could actually build that into a model, the same way we've built the model of our speedcraft, and then use that to measure the actual efficiency of a ship based on the conditions she is evolving into. So we took those algorithms and we used them to build models of ships, of their propulsion systems, the engine, the sails, kites, anything that you can add to a ship to make it more efficient. And we have built essentially a platform of something that's called a digital twin that reproduces the behavior of the ship on the computer and would allow anyone to play scenarios. So if I take this ship with this type of configuration and I sail her from Singapore through Marseille with a sail date of April 14th, for example, and the voyage is expected to take so many days, what will be the power consumption of that ship? Now, if I take the same ship and I add, 6 solid sails or 2 kites, or maybe an hybrid engine, fuel plus hydrogen electric, and I run her on the same route, same dates, what will be the energy consumption? What is the difference between the two? What is the saving? And the saving is both monetary and in terms of carbon emissions.
I'm aware that there's a lot of different companies that are using digital twins now and offering digital twins for maintenance and, dare I say it, for performance. But there's a British company as well called Bar Technologies. Mm-hmm. I think they're doing something similar to you.
Yeah, and they are coming from the America's Cup.
So exactly. Do you understand what I'm saying? So how do you bring that USP out?
Yeah, so I agree with you. The concept of digital twin is becoming more and more popular. It was primarily born from maintenance issues, trying to understand the wear and tear and try to do a predictive maintenance instead of fixing things when they break. And digital twins are super effective at that. The good news is that it's becoming more and more commonplace and people understand what a digital twin is. That was not necessarily the case a couple years back. So how different we are from others? So first, we are not looking at maintenance. We are not looking at building a twin of the electronic systems or the engines or whatnot of the ship. We are purely looking at it from a performance and energy efficiency point of view, building on the law of physics. And that's probably the most important thing. Of course, we will use IoT data as they pertain to the performance of the ship. So, for example, having wind capture, having RPM capture on the engine can be super useful. But we are not looking at that part as primarily. We are looking at the physics and how they apply. What we've done is that we are incorporating into our models the Cfd simulations. You're familiar with the CFD, both of the ship in water, the ship in air, also the impact of wind on the superstructure, the sails in the air, the interaction between sails. So this is what we are focusing on: is understanding the physical behavior of every component of the ship, and understanding their interaction and how the forces are going to add up or oppose themselves or interact with one another for the behavior of the ship. And that, I don't think there are a lot of people who are looking at that on the market. I know we have taken a look at BAR's offering. They are probably the closest on the market to what we have. I don't know if they have slightly different value prop or if they are on the same segment. It's still a very nascent market, and when we talk to shipyards, to shipping companies, they are usually saying to us, well, we don't really know if there are solutions that can do that. We have been thinking about doing it manually, about engaging armies of CFD engineers to do the calculation. So it's still probably a very, very young market.
Alex Caizergues, along with fellow Syroco co-founder and startup advisor Yves de Montiel, on the plans to use the software they developed to help design a world speed record system and to develop it into a CFD and digital twin tool to help make shipping more efficient and cleaner. The attempt to set a new speed record will be in the summer next year. They're still using the prototype and the software to make improvements, and looking at the videos they produce, you can see that the underwater foil is still more solidly fixed to the pod than the final setup they will likely use with the wire. Gaining the speed record is a moonshot for Syroco, but they already have other moonshots in mind, and they're taking inspiration from Bernard Piccard's famous record with a solar plane.
So not only the speed record, but also future, what we call moonshots. And even though clearly today we are focusing on the speed record, we have other ideas. And we want to work on other concepts, other innovation drivers. So from the speed record itself, we have a potential of other innovations that could be leveraged. Today we are focusing on this digital twin platform, Syroco efficient ship, but there are other things we have invented that we think could be useful for the industry. So this one should already take us to, I would say, to the next steps, and then other moonshots, which may or may not be linked to sports, which may be more innovation driven. For example, a role model that we particularly like is Bertrand Piccard with Solar Impulse. The solar airplane. I mean, it was not a sporting challenge. Of course, it was very difficult and exhausting and whatnot, but it was not about sports. It was more about pure sheer innovation. So that's the kind of mindset that we are into.
I heard a ringing bell this morning, and it woke me from a dream. And in that dream I heard a warning, saying leave the rest, take only what you need.
Well, that's it for this episode of the Aronnax Podcast. Please remember to share, subscribe and like. And I've a growing archive of episodes over the last couple of years of the Aronnax Podcast, looking at the transformation of the shipping and maritime space. Also, you'll find more stories on these themes on the Fathom.World website. Goodbye for now.